A hearty good afternoon to one and all present over here. In the last class, we have dealt with the sampling types, and among them, we dealt with judgment sampling. So, in that classes, we dealt about the merits and demerits of judgment sampling. In merits, only small number of sampling units can be used, and here the study is unknown, the trades, case, sampling, etc. Urgent public policy and business decisions can be taken in this sampling, purposive sampling. Whereas in demerits, only personal prejudice and bias. Like if in judgmental sampling, we can find out कि मतलब हमें जिनसे लोगों से करवाना है हम सिर्फ उन्हीं से करेंगे due to the personal prejudice and bias and no objective way of evaluating reliability of the test. There is no specific objective. So how we can see judgment sampling, like for example, if we have to take a sample size of 8, so if we went to the class and we find out there are 20 students, and if I know among them 8 of the students, I know them that they are okay, well, good students, so I can just directly take out of 28 students, and like that my sample would be there. हमें जो पसंद आए 8 बच्चे हमने उनको निकाल लिया और हमने अपना सैम्पल बना लिया और उस तरीके से हमारा जजमेंटल सैम्पलिंग हो गया. सो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द मेथड ऑफ judgmental sampling. Next is convenience sampling. As the name suggests, it is convenience. Okay. So convenience sampling units are selected. It is neither by probability nor by judgment. Okay. So whatsoever is convenient to you, you can take them as their sample. The merits are, it is useful in pilot studies because in pilot studies we can have less number of candidates and we can easily find out what is our convenience. Okay, if I can go to that particular place, it is in my reach, I am conveniently going to that particular place and I am taking that samples from there. So like that my samples can be selected. Second, the demerits over here is that the demerits are the results are usually biased and they are unsatisfactory. Like in convenience sampling example, if a classroom has 100 students, here you can see in green, orange, red, blue, green, purple and all pink color. Here we can find out that different category students are there. And among them conveniently, if which all students I can take conveniently. If the particular students, they are under my convenience, they are living near to my house or they are living near to my area. So like that I can conveniently take out 20 students and I can do the sampling of that student. Now next is quota sampling. What is the meaning of quota? Most commonly used in probability sampling. What is quota? It is specified according to some specified characteristics. Like specified characteristics means it can be anything, like quota of class, quota of community, quota of religion, quota of anything. Means a specific quota where the persons are of same similarities. Okay, so within the quota, selection depends on personal judgment, and among that quota there will be the selection that will be dependent, it will be on personal judgment. So what all are the merits of quota sampling? It is used in public opinion studies, and its demerits are, it is used in demerits of personal prejudice and bias. So like here in quota sampling example, there was a radio listening survey in which the interviewer interviewed 500 people. As per the quota information, it can be categorized again into three subheadings. So what all were there? Among them, there were housewives, there that was of 60%. Next was farmer, which consisted of 25%, and children under age of 15. So that there was about 15%. And among them, through personal judgment, again through purposive sampling, through personal judgment, particular people were be selected. Among 60% housewives, 300 were selected. Among 25% farmers, 125 were selected by personal judgment. And from 15% of children under age 15, 75% were selected. And like that, total of 500 people were selected through quota sampling. So in quota sampling, what it is a groups are being divided, different communities or different groups. So here the groups were housewives, farmers and children, and among them from each of the group particular amount of people were selected, and like that sample was being formed. Next is snowball sampling. What is snowball sampling? A special non-probability method used when the desired sample characteristics is rare. So for example, snowball sampling, like how a ball falls on the ground. In the same way, snowball sampling. Here, Special characteristics are rare. For example, I'm just giving you an example of regarding prostitutes. We can identify prostitutes. So if we identify one of them, like if one of the prostitutes we have identified, and through them we can identify the second one, and from the second one we can identify the third one, from the third one we can identify the fourth one. So this kind type of sampling is known as snowball sampling, where the sample characteristics is very rare and they cannot be easily identified, or they doesn't want them to be exposed. In that kind of samplings is known as snowball sampling. So it may be extremely difficult or cost prohibitive to locate respondents in this situation. Here the prostitutes example that I have given as an example. There can be many other cases like rape victim cases, acid victim cases and all. So here through snowball sampling from one person we can identify the second person, from the second person we can identify the third person. And the snowball sampling relies on referrals from initial subjects to generate additional subjects. Like snowball sampling, here you can see that make contact with one or two cases in the population. One or two cases will make the contact and then ask these cases to identify the further cases. So here in the center we can see there's a black dot. From there we can find out another one, and through them we can find out the another one. So here it is known as reference. Like in multi-level marketing also this thing happens. From one person he approaches two person, and from that two persons we can identify two more persons, like that. It's a sort of that level only. It's not exactly that. Here we can find out one person, and through their reference we can find out another person. So these cases ask these new cases to identify further new cases. So when we have to stop when either no new cases are given or the sample is as large as it is manageable. So in two cases we can stop where no new cases can be available to us, and when the sample size have gone too large so that it is very difficult to manage. Now what all are the merits and demerits of snowball sampling? In merits, access to difficult to reach population. Other methods may not yield any results. Here it is very difficult to reach because some of the people they don't want to be get exposed, or they don't want their privacy to be hampered. So these all are the merits. And demerits are what? It is not representative of the population and will result in a biased sample as it is self-selecting. So here we cannot find out whether the representative of the population is a good representative or not, and it can also be self-selecting also. Okay, so these are the merits and demerits. Hope the snowball sampling is clear to you all. Like that we have completed our non-probability sampling. So in non-probability sampling we have dealt with judgment sampling, convenience sampling, quota sampling and snowball sampling. So like that non-probability is completed. Now we are going to the next topic, that is probability sampling. From probability sampling, the first one that we are going to deal is simple random sampling. So what is simple random sampling? Each unit has an equal opportunity for being selected. In simple random sampling, we can directly select any of the sample. Like that, if 50 in a classroom there are 50 students, we can just go and take our first 10 students come out. Like that we can identify simple random sampling. We can purposely say that randomly 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 come out. We have selected you as a sample. So each unit has equal opportunity being selected, and the chance determines which items shall be included. Okay. Now the simple random sampling, what all the following things true? All items should be selected independently. Next, at each selection, all remaining items have same chances of being selected, and all the possible samples of a given sizes are equally unlikely to be selected. The previous example that I have given, that is another thing. Now we are dealing with the simple random sampling examples. How we will be dealing? In simple or unrestricted random sampling, see here you can see table of random numbers. Part 1, here you can see the various numbers are being there, and I can randomly select any 5 among them. That comes under simple random sampling. Firstly, if I want, I can just select the first 10, or I can select second number of each row. Like that I can select. Second method is lottery method. As everyone knows what is a lottery. In lottery method, what it is, different names of peoples are being written on a sheet and it is being kept inside the jar, and just randomly we are picking the 10 chits, and whosoever names are there in the 10 chits, they will be selected as a sample for our study. So this comes as lottery method and simple number table. In lottery method, the probability of each item is 1 by n, and without replacement probability first row will be 1 by n, and probability of second row will be 1 by n minus 1. So table of random numbers. Here you have seen the tables are been written in a randomly way, and then I have categorized them into different groups, and among them groups I can directly randomly select any of the number, or I can select just one number from each of the group, or the second third number of each of the group, like that. It is known as simple random sampling. So what is the merits of simple random sampling? There are no personal bias in simple random sampling. Sample is more representative of population. Accuracy can be assessed as sampling errors follows principle of chance. What are the demerits of simple random sampling? It requires complete cataloged universe. Cases are too widely dispersed, more time, and because of more time there is more cost. Now comes stratified random sampling. Universe is subdivided into mutually exclusive groups. A simple random sampling is then chooses independently from each group. So here what it is, here the groups are here it is divided into mutually exclusive groups. Okay, so what is simple random sampling? The main three issues, that is main three issues involved in stratifications are: so base of a stratification, it should be same, number of strata should be same, and sample size within the strata, it should be also same. Or these are the issues that happens: either the base is not same, the number of strata may be difficult, and the sample size within the strata, there will be also some of the other issues. So these are the issues that is involved in stratification. So sample size within strata, what should be the sample size within strata? It should be proportional, and or it is disproportional. So in proportion, what it is? Proportion in each stratum, it should be equal, and disproportion is equal number in each stratum. Like for example, if there is a simple stratified random sampling example, it is Rohtak city. In Rohtak city, strata is being formed. So what is a strata here is regarding the caste system. In this, first is general, then SC, then ST, and OBC. So the general comprises of 30%, SC comprises of 15%, ST of 25%, and OBC of 30%. So from them, what it is, we are selecting the samples out of 100. So for 30%, 300 people are selected. From 15%, 150 people are selected. From ST 25% 250, and from OBC 30% 300 people is selected, and like that 1000 people sample is being selected. Clear? As per the population, the percentage, as per the percentage of the population, that much number of samples are being selected for the sample study. In stratified random sampling, the merits are: it is more representative, it has greater accuracy, it is greater geographical concentration. So there are more representatives because we have already divided the population into various groups, so we are having different representatives. Second one is greater accuracy. Here the accuracy is also greater, and greater geographical concentration, because we are taking population from various areas of the geography, so various geographic concentrations can also be accomplished in this. So what are the demerits of this population? Utmost care in dividing the strata. Skill sampling supervisors are being important, and if we are not get available, and if we don't have that many sampling supervisors, it will be very difficult for us to categorize the samples into various strata. Cost per observation may be also high. In systematic sampling, first is selecting first unit at random. We are selecting the first unit at random, and then selecting additional units at evenly spaced interval, and then complete list of population is also available. So K, here the formula is K is equal to capital N minus small n, where K stands for sampling interval, capital N stands for universe size, and small n stands for sample size. So for example, there is a class of 95 students from roll number 1 to 95, and the sample is of 10 students. So what it is, we will be dividing them. So what it is, K is equal to 9.5. So 9.5 as overall 9.5 can be converted to 10. So like that we are selecting. Next, systemic sampling merits. The merits, it is simple and it is convenient, it is less time consuming, and demerits are population with hidden periodicity. We don't know what all are the different periodicities of various population. Next comes cluster sampling. In cluster sampling, a sampling technique in which the entire population of interest is divided into groups or clusters, and a random sampling of this cluster is selected. Here that is divided into various groups. Each cluster must be mutually exclusive and together. The cluster must include the entire population. After cluster are selected, then all units within the cluster are selected. No units from non-selected clusters are included in the sample. So like in cluster sampling, the clusters are primary sampling unit and the units within the clusters are known as secondary sampling unit. So stratification versus clustering. What is the difference between stratification versus clustering? In stratification, all strata are represented in the sample, whereas in clustering, only a subset of clusters are in the sample. In stratification, less error is compared to simple random, and here clustering, there are more error compared to simple random. In stratification, more expensive to obtain stratification information before sampling, and in clustering, reduces cost to sample only some areas or organization. Now, how we can find out cluster sampling steps? Firstly, identification of a cluster. So, how we will be identifying the cluster? We will find out what are the list of cities, towns, villages, and wards of cities with their population and falling in target area under study. For example, if you want to target antenatal mothers of MP or a particular area, so firstly we will list down all the cities, the towns, the villages, and wards of city with their population who will be falling under the target area of antenatal mother. Then calculate cumulative population and divide by 30. This gives sampling interval. So if we find out a number, it came to be 500 or something. Now what we will do, we will divide the 500 divided by 30, and whatever the answer comes, that will be the sampling interval. Then select a random number less than or equal to sampling interval for having same number of digits. This formats first cluster. And how if we divide what I said 500 divided by 30, so it comes to be 23 18, okay, approximately 17. So the 17 will be the cluster. So from this will be the sampling interval. So select a random number less than or equal to the sampling interval. So we can select any of the number, like we are selecting 10. Okay, and this forms the first cluster. We are maintaining a cluster that is of 10 people. Then random number plus sampling interval is equal to the population of second cluster. Now the random number, that came to be 10, plus sample interval, it came to be, I think so, it came to be 17. So that 2 plus 2, it is equal to the population of second cluster. Then second cluster plus sampling interval is equal to the third cluster. Then last or 30th cluster is equal to 29 cluster plus sample interval. So this is the sample clustering formula. Here you can see frequency is 2000, cumulative frequency is 2000, that comes to be the first cluster. Then 3000 plus 5000, this came to be the second cluster. Then in third cluster it is 1500 plus 6500 came to third cluster. Like that, it is the cluster sampling is being formed. So what are the merits of cluster sampling? It is most economical form of sampling, larger sample for a similar fixed cost. It is less time for listening and implementation. It reduces travel and other administrative cost. What are the demerits over here? It may not reflect the diversity of the community. The standard errors of the estimates are high compared to other sampling designs with same sample size. Next comes multi-stage sampling. Here, the sampling process is carried out in various stages. It's an effective strategy because it banks on multiple randomization, and here frequently it is used frequently when a complete list of all members of a population does not exist and it is inappropriate. So here the sampling is taking place at various stages and it is effective only in multiple randomization. Like in multiple randomization, if first stage will be countries. From countries we are categorizing, we have sample sized sampling is done, and we went to the segments, various segments. From segments we went to the households, and from households we went to the individuals of the household. So this comes under multi-stage sampling. So various stages are involved here for the sampling. So what is the merits of multi-stage sampling? First, it introduces flexibility in the sampling method. It enables existing divisions and subdivision of population to be used as the unit. Here, larger area can be covered, and it is valuable in underdeveloped areas. What are the demerits of multi-stage sampling? It is less accurate than a sample chosen by a single stage process. The example here of next comes multi-phase sampling. It is used for studies to be carried out in multi-phases. For example, a cross-sectional study in nutrition may be carried out in phases, whereas a study is carried out in all families. Second, their dietary assessment is in the subsamples. Then third, through anthropometric measurements in subsample of family members is covered in second phase. So firstly, we have identified a study in the families. From this family, we have identified, we are again sub phases. In second phase, we are identifying the dietary assessment, and from the dietary assessment we are then measuring the anthropometric measurements through which we can identify whether the nutritional needs is fulfilled or not. Next comes lot quality assurance sampling. It is originated in the manufacturing industry for quality control purposes. Manufacturers were interested in meet the desired specification. The only outcome in this type of sampling is acceptable or not acceptable. So it is lot quality assurance, where it is being designed in such a way that whether the lot, whether the goods, or whether decide it is having the specified specification or not, and it has only two things, that is acceptable or not acceptable. Here the sample size is the number of units that are selected from each lot. The decision value in the number of defective items that need to be found before the lot is deemed an unacceptable. There are two types of risk here. First is the risk of accepting a bad lot, referred as type 1 error, and the risk of not accepting a good lot is referred to as type 2 error. Information from lots can be combined to obtain the overall proportion of defects. Here the population is first divided into a complete set of non-overlapping lots. Then the samples are taken from every lot and the proportion of defective item in each lot is calculated. The lot quality assurance sampling method is an example of stratified sampling, where the lots play the role of the strata. Here also different strata the lots are also being divided. The advantages of lot quality assurance sampling method over a traditional stratified sampling design is that the response for each lot is binary, that is acceptable or not, and therefore smaller sample size can be used. It can be used for evaluating a number of health program, example immunization coverage, knowledge of ORS, etc. Then, despite successful trials of lot quality assurance sampling in health surveys, its routine use has not been established yet. So what is the errors over here? Sampling errors and non-sampling errors. From sampling errors, the sample problem, and then non-sampling errors, there is sample and census errors. In sampling errors, there are biased and unbiased. In bias, there is elimination of all source of bias, and in unbiased, increase the sample size. And then non-sampling error. Data specification inadequate and inconsistent with respect to objective of census. Inaccurate or inappropriate methods of interview, observation, and definition. Lack of trained and experienced investigators. Errors due to non-response. Errors in data processing operation, and errors committed during presentation. Here The references I've taken for this study is by Biostatistics by B.K. Mahajan, Statistical Method by S.P. Gupta, and Dawson and Beth. I hope the class is clear to you all regarding the samples and the sampling techniques. So in this class, we have dealt with various types of sampling technique that were non-probability sampling, probability sampling, and mixed. We also learned regarding the sample, what is the samples, how it is being classified, what are the different types and techniques that we've been used. Hope this class was beneficial to one and all who have attended the class. I've divided the class into this two subpart. First one is part 1 and the second one is part 2. Thank you all for your patience listening.